HOA Karen claimed my pool was a community amenity, so I installed a moat around it. Part 1. The cannonball that started a war. It was one of those perfect Saturday mornings, sun glowing gently, lemonade in my hand. My dog stretched out beside me, soaking up the peace. I had worked years to afford this backyard oasis, especially the pool. It wasn't massive, but it was mine. Every inch built with pride, saved from paychecks, bonuses, sacrifices, my little slice of quiet. Then, splash. Not the soothing kind. A loud, disruptive cannonball explosion that made me jerk forward in my chair. 3 kids, laughing, soaking wet, were in my pool. I blinked hard, hoping it was a dream. Nope. Towels sprawled across my patio furniture, juice boxes half drunk, flip-flops everywhere. I stood up, heart pounding, just in time to hear her voice. "It's their swim time today. Don't be rude." I turned toward the sidewalk, and there she stood, Linda Hayes. Hair pulled into a bun so tight it could deflect bullets, arms crossed, clipboard in hand like she was running a summer camp. "Excuse me?" I called out. "They're on the schedule," she replied with a smug smile. "Check your mailbox." Schedule? I walked to the gate in disbelief. "This is my pool, on my private property." She didn't blink. "It's part of the community access plan now. We voted." I actually laughed. "What community access plan?" She pulled out a paper, printed in Comic Sans, no less, and waved it like it was legally binding. "Neighborhood Council swim schedule," it read. My name was listed as Host Week A. No signature, no stamp, no HOA. I stared at her. "We don't have an HOA. We're voluntary," she snapped. "Majority vote makes it valid." My blood simmered. "You think you can just assign my pool to the neighborhood like it's a playground?" She crossed her arms. "You're the only house with a pool. It's only fair." I didn't argue. I just turned, walked back inside, locked the door. But something in me had shifted. If Karen wanted a war over my pool, she was about to find out who she was dealing with. Part 2. Fake flyers and real fury. That night, I barely slept. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw Linda, standing by my pool, claiming it like she'd bought stock in my property. Then, the kicker. Came the next morning. Slipped under my front door was a thick, laminated notice. Friendly reminder. Sunday slot reserved. Morales family, 10 a.m. Are you kidding me? I tore it up on the spot, but I could feel it. This wasn't just one neighbor being entitled. It was organized. I walked outside and scanned the street. Sure enough, another mom across the way waved awkwardly, her kid already in swim trunks. And who was there again? Clipboard in hand. Linda, holding court. I marched over. "This ends today." She didn't flinch. "You're being unreasonable," she said. "It's not like we're asking for your kitchen. Just the pool, for the kids." I stared at her. "Behind my locked fence? On land I pay taxes for?" She smiled. "It's for community morale." That's when I knew logic wasn't going to work. This wasn't about sharing. It was about control. By noon, I had a brand new sign on my gate. Private property, no trespassing, and just for good measure. I changed the gate lock. 5 hours later, 3 more flyers in my mailbox. Summer swim calendar. Don't be that neighbor. Pool use is unity. Unity? This wasn't unity. This was social pressure warfare, led by a clipboard and a big smile. And that's when the idea hit me. If she wanted to treat my pool like a community center, I'd treat my yard like a castle, and every castle needs a moat. Part 3, the Moat Plan. That night, I opened my laptop and I typed one word into Google, Moat. Not a joke, not a metaphor. If Karen wanted a battle, she was getting one. The next morning, I called a local landscaping company. Have you ever built something like a decorative water trench? There was a pause, then laughter. You mean like a moat? Exactly, I said, but make it fancy. The contractor, Carlos, showed up 2 days later. We walked the backyard while I explained the situation. You want it elegant, he said, but also uninviting. Exactly, I nodded. I want beauty, with a message. We got to work. Spray paint lines, measurements, flagged utilities. By the end of the week, my yard was buzzing with trenching equipment. And of course, Karen noticed. She strutted by every 10 minutes, pretending to walk her dog, peeking over the fence like a nosy queen losing her throne. On the third day, she shouted over the fence, "What are you digging back there?" I didn't even look up. "Boundary enhancements," I called back. She laughed, but it was nervous now. By the time we were done, I had a 5-foot-wide water trench around my pool deck, stone-lined, blue-tinted, complete with LED lights and a retractable bridge. It looked serene, but to the trained eye, it was war, disguised as landscaping. Greg, my neighbor, came by and just stared. "Dude, you really built a moat." I handed him a soda. "Karen won't be trespassing now." He raised his can like a toast. "Long live the king." Part 4. The Clipboard Counterattack. 2 days after the moat was finished, I heard a honk outside. Karen. She was parked across the street, clipboard in hand, with 2 women filming her like it was a news segment. She yelled across the road, "This is community intimidation. You've escalated things in an unhealthy, unsanctioned way." I stepped onto my porch, calm as ever. "There is no HOA. This is my property. And that," I said, pointing at the moat, "isn't intimidation. It's a line you crossed." She huffed. "That moat is dangerous. What if a child falls in?" I shrugged. Then they'd be trespassing. That night, I found a red envelope taped to my door. "Legal notice. Violation of shared amenity access." Inside, a fake letter citing Rule 6.3, host property modifications without approval. It had a seal labeled Suburban Harmony Authority. I burst out laughing. I sent it to my lawyer buddy. His reply? "This is legally hilarious. Keep it. Might come in handy." And so I did. I started a folder. Every flyer, every fake notice, every petty threat. Because this wasn't just a feud anymore. Karen wasn't just entitled. She was building a fake empire. And I was the first one to stand in her way. But I wasn't just going to stand. I was going to end it. Part 5. Operation Drown the Drama. The next morning, Greg, my decent enough neighbor, knocked on my door. He looked sheepish, holding a flyer. Linda says my family has pool time today at 3. Just checking. Is that actually real?" I stared at him. "Greg, it's my private pool. That flyer? Total fiction." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah. Figured. She said we'd lose our slot if we didn't show." That was it. I realized this wasn't just Karen being power-hungry. She was running a full-on fake HOA campaign, using guilt, fear, and fabricated rules to bend the whole block. People weren't dumb. They were just worn down, afraid to be the neighbor who caused problems. Not me. I spent that afternoon walking the entire property line, every inch, every angle, double-checked the original deed and land survey, no easements, no shared anything. My pool was mine. So, if she wanted to treat it like medieval public bathing grounds, then fine. I'd treat her like the siege commander she was, and I'd fortify. Not just with fences, but with firepower. The moat was just the beginning. Now, It was time to fight this fake HOA with real law, real cameras, and real receipts. Part 6. Karen tries to cancel me with clipboards. By Tuesday afternoon, the street looked like it was preparing for war. Bright orange cones suddenly lined my front sidewalk. In the middle, a cardboard sign duct-taped to a garden stake. HOA Review in Progress. Non-compliant resident. I didn't even blink. Just yanked it up and tossed it in the trash. But the message? Crystal clear. Karen wasn't just doubling down. She was launching a smear campaign. I started getting the looks. You know the ones. Neighbors walking slower when passing my house. Some pretending not to see me. Others glancing at the moat like I'd built a drawbridge into madness. Greg texted me later that night. Bro, Karen says you're under HOA investigation. People are asking questions. I replied with 5 words. Ask her which HOA exactly. But it didn't stop there. By the next morning, every mailbox had a new flyer, printed with fake watermarks and bold capital letters. Emergency Rule Enforcement Amendment. Karen had invented an entire set of rules out of thin air. Fake bylaws, fake violations, even a checkbox section for neighbor signatures. It looked like a parody, but she was dead serious. And that's when I knew she wasn't going to stop until someone took the clipboard out of her hand. For good. Part 7. The Spy in the Night, and the final straw that night. I reviewed the security footage, and there she was, Karen, wearing black from head to toe, hoodie up, tiptoeing along my fence like a cartoon villain. She crouched near the moat, pulled out a trash bag, and started dumping mulch into the water. Mulch. She was trying to clog it, like some twisted beaver dam sabotage. Then she slipped, landed flat on her backside in the wet grass. I'll admit, I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my lemonade, but the laughter faded fast, because this wasn't just petty anymore. It was vandalism. It was trespassing. And worst of all, it was deliberate. I saved the footage, backed it up, sent it to my lawyer. Then I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Officer Raines, calm as ever, watched the whole clip and shook his head. You want to press charges? I paused, then said, Not yet. Just make it official. Let her know I'm not playing anymore. He nodded. We'll have a talk with her. And I thought, maybe that would cool her jets. But I underestimated the dark power of the clipboard. Because the very next morning, my moat, flooded with garbage, soda cans, leaves, a pair of flip-flops, and worst of all, a rusted old bicycle half submerged in the water. It wasn't just a prank, it was a declaration. Karen had gone from clipboard crusader to full-blown neighborhood menace. And this time, I wasn't just documenting it. I was about to end it. Part 8. The public turnaround, and her private fall. That morning, I cleaned out the moat in silence. No yelling, no swearing, just a quiet resolve. Because Karen hadn't just tossed garbage in the water. She'd thrown away the last shred of decency she had left, but something else was changing too. The neighborhood. People were watching, whispering. I started noticing them pausing at my yard, not with judgment, but curiosity. That afternoon, Judy, the dog-walking neighbor from 2 houses down, slowed at my mailbox. She looked around, then leaned in and whispered, We're not with her. Just so you know. I raised an eyebrow. She nodded. She's gone too far. And my son? He thinks your moat is epic. Says you should build one around our trampoline. We both laughed, just for a second. And in that laugh, I felt the tide turning. Later that week, Karen hosted a so-called emergency HOA meeting on her Out on her front lawn. Plastic canopy, folding chairs, homemade badges for her and 2 followers. Greg went. He recorded the whole thing. That night, he texted me. Bro, you need to see this. In the video, Karen stood there, red-faced, ranting like a dictator whose kingdom was slipping away. He has destabilized the community. He created a hostile, aquatic perimeter. She waved printouts in the air like they were court orders, but half the pages were blank, and one even had draft watermarked across it. When someone, one of her own people, asked what actual law I'd broken, Karen snapped, "Do you want to be next?" The crowd, dead silent. A few neighbors stood up, quietly walked off. Others turned their chairs around and whispered behind hands. Karen didn't realize it yet, but her authority was circling the drain and the moat, was doing exactly what I designed it for. Not just keeping her out, but showing everyone else what she really was. Part 9. Fake Laws, Real Trouble. 2 days later, it arrived, a thick manila envelope taped to my front door. No return address. Inside, 10 printed pages of nonsense. Fake HOA bylaws, a laughable $10,000 fine, and a zoning form so poorly faked, my name was spelled wrong, twice. It was Karen's last-ditch effort to scare me, but all it did was make me laugh. Still, I didn't let it slide. I took everything to my attorney. Every phony flyer, every trespassing clip, every mulch-filled Moat photo. He didn't even blink. We'll draft a cease and desist so sharp it could slice her clipboard in 2. And he did. It was brutal, legal, and beautiful. Every false claim listed, every fake document exposed, and the cherry on top? One more act of harassment or trespassing, and we file for criminal charges. I had it hand-delivered. Karen opened the door, took the envelope without a word. Her eyes didn't move. Her lips were tight, her knuckles white. That night, no flyers, no fake meetings, no orange cones lining my yard. It was quiet, but I didn't relax, because I knew that silence wasn't surrender. It was regrouping, and I was right. The next morning I heard it, a strange low hum outside. Not a lawnmower, not a car. Something hovering. I stepped out and saw it. A drone, buzzing over my pool like a mosquito on a mission. It dipped low over the moat, did a slow circle, then zipped off toward Karen's house. I didn't need proof. I already had it. On camera. She'd officially entered spy movie territory. Surveillance? After a legal warning? She wanted to keep playing games? Fine. But she just activated endgame mode. Part 10. The drone, the breakdown, and the dominoes. I reviewed the drone footage that night, zoomed in, enhanced, and there it was, Karen's rooftop, and a figure in a floral blouse holding the remote. She wasn't even subtle, but instead of being angry, I felt something else. Resolved. If she wanted to collect evidence, she'd get more than she bargained for. Later that day, I got a call, a real estate agent. "Hi, I'm handling the property next to Karen's. She mentioned community amenities like access to your pool." I nearly spit out my coffee. "There is no access. She's spreading false claims, and if that shows up in any listing, there will be legal consequences." Silence. Then an apology. And then, a few hours later, Greg texted me. "Bro, check the Nextdoor app. She's going nuclear." I opened it. There it was. A post titled, "The Tyrant Among Us." She called me a backyard dictator, said I'd militarized my property, accused me of installing government-grade cameras and creating a hostile aquatic perimeter. She even claimed I might be ex-CIA. I laughed so hard I cried, but it wasn't just comedy anymore. It was defamation, and I had receipts. So I posted a single reply. Screenshots of her fake HOA docs, footage of her trespassing, a video of her nephew tossing paint in the moat. And then, I waited. Within hours, the comments rolled in. One neighbor said, "Karen once fined me for planting unauthorized tulips." Another, "She told my 7-year-old his inflatable unicorn violated community animal guidelines." And just like that, the illusion cracked. Karen wasn't the queen of the block anymore. She was the punchline. Part 11. The Court Summons and the Fall of a Clipboard Queen. The next morning, a police cruiser pulled into Karen's driveway. Neighbors peeked out through blinds. Kids froze mid-bike ride. And I just stood on my porch, lemonade in hand. Karen stormed outside in her usual visor and fury, arguing with the officer, arms flailing like she was conducting a symphony of nonsense. He stayed calm, took notes, and handed her a white envelope, a court summons. I didn't cheer, didn't smirk, but inside, it felt like peace had finally RSVP'd to the neighborhood. That night, the notice appeared on her door. Required appearance, county court, charges, trespassing, defamation, harassment, vandalism. No more flyers. No more fake bylaws. Just consequences. I spent that evening by the pool, dog dozing beside me, moat lights glowing soft blue, the breeze rustling the leaves like a lullaby. For the first time in months, I felt safe again. It wasn't over yet. But the tide had turned. The neighbors saw it, heard it, felt it. And Karen, she wasn't feared anymore. She was finally just a woman with a clipboard no one listened to. Part 12. The Courtroom. Collapse of HOA Karen. The courthouse was quiet. Not the peaceful kind, the tense kind, where every cough echoed and every shuffle felt like thunder. Karen sat across the lobby from me, her posture stiff, jaw clenched, and that signature smugness gone. Her HOA president pin was nowhere in sight, replaced by a stack of loose papers, half crumpled. I had my folder too, but mine was full of facts, security footage, cease and desist letters, screenshots of flyers, footage of the drone, and the paint-stained moat that had started it all. The clerk called our case. We stepped inside a small, plain courtroom. No drama, no jury, just a judge, 2 attorneys, and the weight of truth hanging in the air. My lawyer, calm, unflinching. He laid out everything like a puzzle clicking into place, each piece sharper than the last. Karen's turn came. She stumbled through some bizarre speech about neighborhood harmony, and even quoted bylaws from a community 3 towns away. At one point, she actually said, "I was only trying to unite people through shared chlorinated joy." The judge didn't blink, didn't smile. He just looked at her over his glasses and said, "This isn't uniting, Ms. Hayes. This is trespassing, harassment, and falsification." He ruled right then and there. Karen was banned from starting or representing any community group for 5 years. Had to issue public retractions across every platform she used to spread lies. Was fined and ordered to cover damages, including moat cleanup and pool maintenance. But the worst part for her? You are not, and never were, part of an HOA. With that, her clipboard kingdom crumbled. She stood there, silent. No tantrum, no appeal, just defeat. I walked out of that courtroom, not as that neighbor with the pool, but as the guy who drew the line and held it. Part 13. Clipboards down, crowns off. When I stepped out of that courtroom, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like relief. No more threats, no more flyers in Comic Sans, No more drone buzzing like a mosquito from suburban hell, just silence. And the gentle rustle of my cease and desist victory flapping softly in the breeze. That afternoon, the entire block changed. Karen's retraction post went live by sundown. On Facebook, Nextdoor, even her monthly newsletter she used to hand-deliver like some HOA Santa. It read, I, Linda Hayes, retract all claims made regarding community access to the private property at 44 Monroe Circle. These claims were made in error and without legal basis. I apologize to the homeowner and neighborhood for any disruption caused. No signature, flourish, no fake HOA seal, just pure legally required surrender. People noticed. Judy from across the street, she taped a printed copy of the retraction on her front window like a neighborhood trophy. Greg dropped by with a beer and said, Moat King reigns supreme. I didn't laugh. I just raised my bottle and said, Long live the drawbridge. And Karen, she vanished. No more evening strolls, no more pop-up sidewalk meetings, no more shouting about unity while trespassing with laminated schedules. Her clipboard had fallen silent, and honestly, it was glorious. The following week, something unexpected happened. A real estate sign appeared in front of her house. Bright red, big letters, and beneath it, in desperation font, price reduced, motivated seller. Neighbors passed it like it was sacred. Some even took selfies in front of it. And me? I just sat by the pool, sipped my lemonade, and adjusted the LED Moat lights like I was prepping for a fireworks show, because the storm had passed. And Karen, she was packing boxes in the dark. Part 14. The Moat Becomes Legend. Karen left on a Tuesday. No goodbye party. No neighbors waving. Just a quiet moving van, a lot of taped-up boxes, and one clipboard tossed on the curb like a fallen crown. By noon, the truck was gone. And just like that, Clearwater Lane felt different. The air was lighter, the street brighter, and my yard peaceful, so peaceful. For the first time in months, I slept with the windows open. No paranoia, no gate checking. Just the quiet ripple of moat water under soft backyard lights. But the story wasn't done. A few days later, I got a knock on the door. It was a woman, mid-30s, confident smile, and holding a fruit basket like she was walking into a Hallmark movie. Hi, she said warmly. I'm Ava. Just bought the place next door. I heard a little about the moat. I blinked. Good things, I hope? She laughed. The best. Honestly, it's what made me put in the offer. Any neighbor who builds a moat is someone I want to know. I invited her in. We talked for an hour about landscaping, privacy, and how Karen tried to trademark the phrase community spirit enforcement. Ava. She was everything Karen wasn't. Chill, respectful, funny. Before she left, she pointed to the moat and said, I don't know if it's security or art, but it's genius. I smiled and replied, it's both. And now, it's finally just decoration. Later that week, I updated the sign near the bridge. It used to say, private property, no entry. But now, it read, Royal Waters, guests welcome, Lao by invitation. Because the moat tee didn't just keep the chaos out. It reminded everyone where the line was, and who had the courage to draw it. Part 15. The Moat Herd. Round the country. About 2 weeks after Ava moved in, I got a phone call I never expected. Hi, this is Lindsay from Modern Home Living. We're running a feature on unconventional backyard designs. And someone submitted your moat. I almost dropped my coffee. Wait, the moat? She chuckled. Yes. The one that apparently stopped an entire fake HOA from taking over your block. I paused. looked out at the water glistening in the morning sun. Yeah, that's the one. They asked for a short interview. Just a few photos. I agreed, under one condition: no address, no names, just the Moat guy. The article went live a week later with the headline, "How One Man Used a Moat to Defend His Backyard," and accidentally inspired a movement. And then everything exploded. Local papers picked it up. Then a DIY YouTuber made a video about it. Then a backyard design blog called it the most iconic passive-aggressive landscaping of the decade. Within days, I had emails from Texas, messages from New Jersey, even a guy from Canada asking, "Do moats work in the snow?" It was surreal, but it was also deeply satisfying, because suddenly, people weren't just laughing at my story. They were learning from it. Messages poured in like, "My neighbor keeps using my driveway. I need a moat for my car." "You're my hero. HOA Karen tried to fine me for painting my shed." "Thanks for standing up. I didn't know I could push back." And that's when it hit me. The moat wasn't just a trench around my pool. It had become a symbol of boundaries, of resistance, of saying no when someone thinks they're entitled to what's yours. Clearwater Lane, it changed too. We didn't go back to being just polite strangers. We became a community, a real one, built on respect, not fake bylaws or newsletters. Greg hosted a grill night. Ava brought craft beer. And I served lemonade by the moat, now lined with lanterns and lilies. The chaos was over, the noise gone. But the lesson, it echoed. Because every time someone looked at that trench, they didn't see paranoia. They saw peace, earned, protected, respected. Part 16, From Backyard Battle to Local Legend. About a month after the article blew up online, a small package showed up at my door. No return label, just a brown box, taped neatly with a single note inside. To the man who proved that boundaries matter, from someone who watched and learned. Beneath the note, a miniature moat model, tiny blue water, mini stone walls, even a tiny drawbridge. I stared at it for a full minute, speechless. Someone out there, a complete stranger, had built a replica of my moat. Not to mock it, but to honor it. That's when I got another surprise. The city council reached out. Apparently, word had spread all the way to the mayor's office. They wanted to recognize my efforts, not just for the design, but for preserving property rights with peaceful creativity. I was invited to speak at a local civic event, alongside urban planners and architects. Me, the moat guy. I kept the speech short. No drama, no HOA slander. Just this. Sometimes the best way to protect peace is to dig deep, literally, and make space sacred again. The room clapped. Even the mayor shook my hand. After that, things settled into a beautiful kind of quiet. The neighborhood thrived. No more fake flyers, no more clipboard crusades. Just kids biking past the moat, yelling, "That's the guy! That's his pool!" I'd nod, raise my lemonade, and smile. Ava started planting sunflowers near her porch. Greg finally fixed the squeaky fence gate. Even Judy invited the block over for movie night. Projector, popcorn, and all. We were peaceful. And not because of rules, but because someone finally drew a line and said, "This is enough." And that line just happened to be filled with water. Part 17, The Call That Changed Everything. It started with a voicemail. "Hi, this is Marlene from City Zoning and Planning. We're reviewing property modifications in your area and have a few questions regarding a moat." I froze mid-sip. The word moat still made me smile. but coming from a government office. Not ideal. I called her back. Her tone was professional, but curious. She said someone had filed an inquiry, anonymously, about whether my water feature complied with city drainage codes. Anonymous? Please. We both knew who it was. Karen might have been gone from Clearwater Lane, but she clearly still had internet access. And grudges. I stayed calm. Marlene, I said, it's decorative. Self-contained. No runoff, no plumbing changes, and I had it approved by a licensed contractor. She asked for documentation. I sent everything. Blueprints, permits, water usage stats. Even a letter from Carlos, my contractor, and swearing it was 100% COI safe and HOA proof. 3 days later, Marlene called back. Everything looks good, she said with a slight laugh. And between you and me, the pictures are amazing. You've got half our office talking about moatscaping. I chuckled. I'm glad. It's inspiring urban infrastructure conversations. She paused. Just one more thing, she said. Did you know your property is eligible for a landscape design feature grant? I blinked. A what? Turns out, the city had a program that awarded homeowners who contributed unique, sustainable, and aesthetic enhancements to residential lots. They'd never given it to a moat before, but they were making an exception. They wanted to showcase my yard in the summer community tour. My pool, my drawbridge, my moat. The very thing Karen tried to shame me for was now becoming a highlight of the city's Creative Landscaping Week. I nearly dropped the phone. That evening I stood by the water again, watching the lights shimmer, the drawbridge lowered with a quiet click, and I whispered, "Who's the community amenity now?" Part 18, the tour, the return, and Karen's final meltdown. Summer came, and with it the official City Creative Landscaping Tour. I'll admit, I didn't think people would show up just to see a moat, but they did. They came in sun hats and sandals, holding little brochures printed by the city. I watched from my patio as groups of curious guests strolled up to the sign that read, "Royal Waters, by invitation only." Then gasped when they saw the koi pond, the elegant bridge, the gentle burble of the hidden water pumps. Someone even said, "This feels like stepping into a fantasy novel." Kids whispered, "It's a real castle." Even city officials posed for photos, right in front of the gate. I gave them lemonade. A few asked for my contractor's information. It was surreal, peaceful, and just the kind of redemption arc I thought this story needed. But peace never lasts long when Karen's involved, because just before noon, a familiar SUV pulled up across the street, and out stepped the ghost of suburban chaos herself, Karen, sunglasses, clipboard, and fury written all over her face. She hadn't aged much, but the bitterness, that was new. She walked right up to the edge of the crowd, uninvited, unwelcome, and loudly asked, "Who gave permission for this circus?" Silence. One of the city staff turned and blinked at her. "Ma'am, this is a registered stop on the landscaping tour." She scoffed. "That moat is a violation of neighborhood integrity." I stepped forward, calm, smiling. "Karen, this isn't your kingdom anymore." She locked eyes with me, and I saw it. That desperate fire, the kind that only burns when someone realizes they've truly lost. And then, her voice rising, "This whole thing was my idea. Community access, shared beauty. You stole it and twisted it." Gasps from the crowd. A few phones went up. One kid whispered, "Is this part of the tour?" I took a breath. "No, buddy. This is history." Karen shouted one last time, something about lawsuits and ethics, before storming back to her SUV. The city rep leaned over and asked, Do you want us to file an incident report? I shook my head. No need. Let her keep shouting into the void. As the crowd returned to admiring the moat, I looked around at the smiles, the laughter, the genuine admiration. And I realized Karen had tried to make me the villain, but all she'd done was write my origin story. Part 19, the award, the apology, and the unexpected legacy. A week after the landscaping tour, I got a letter in the mail, thick envelope, fancy seal, real gold foil, not Karen's usual inkjet nonsense. Inside, an invitation. Dear Mr. Foster, you are cordially invited to receive the Clearwater Community Impact Award. Wait, what? I read it twice. Apparently someone, or several someones, had nominated me, not just for the Moat, but for restoring neighborhood trust, reinforcing personal boundaries, and demonstrating how creativity can de-escalate conflict with grace. Grace? Me? The guy who built a mini fortress around his pool? I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the envelope. But deep down, I felt something else. Pride. Not petty gloating pride, real earned quiet pride. So yeah, I RSP'd. And the next Friday I stood on a modest stage at the local civic center, wearing the only blazer I owned. As the mayor, yes, the actual mayor, handed me a certificate. The audience clapped. Some neighbors even stood up. Judy was there, Greg too. And in the very back row, someone I didn't expect to see. Karen. No clipboard, no sunglasses, just folded arms, and a face that looked like it had swallowed a lemon. After the ceremony, I stepped outside for some air. That's when she approached. Daniel, she said softly. I turned, and for the first time in forever, and she didn't look angry. She looked tired. I was wrong, she said, about a lot of things. I raised an eyebrow. She continued, voice shaky. I thought I was helping. I thought structure meant peace. But I just wanted control. She looked at the ground. And I'm sorry. For a second, I just stood there. Because after everything, I didn't expect this. But I nodded. You can't take back what happened, I said quietly. She nodded too. But I can leave it behind, she whispered. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. No clipboard, no flyers, no last-ditch power play. Just a woman, letting go. And me? I turned back to the award in my hands, feeling like the moat I'd built wasn't just about water. It was about walls that healed instead of hurt, boundaries that didn't push people out, but helped keep sanity in. Part 20. The New, Neighbor the Bridge Matha, and the Full Circle Splash. About a month after the award ceremony, the house next door, Karen's old place, finally sold. No spectacle, no open house banners, just a moving truck one morning and a sold sign the next. Then, one sunny Saturday, the new neighbor showed up. Her name was Ava, mid-30s, bright smile, wore hiking boots and carried a sketchbook. We shook hands at the fence. I've read everything, she laughed. The Moat saga, the synchronized swimming showdown, even the fake HOA bylaws. I'm obsessed. I smiled cautiously. I promise I'm low drama, she added, holding up one hand like a scout's oath. No clipboards. No swim teams. I laughed and offered her a lemonade. That afternoon, we sat by the pool, feet dangling near the edge of the moat. She flipped through her sketchbook, pointing out ideas for her own yard. I'm thinking koi pond, maybe a Zen garden vibe. You've got guts, I said, moving into the former HOA throne. She shrugged. That's history now. I just see peace here. And for once, I believed it. The next weekend, she surprised me. While I was trimming hedges, she called me over. And there, On the edge of her property was a handmade wooden bridge, not over the moat, but extending to it. It didn't cross the trench. It just ended at the edge. Symbolic, thoughtful. There was a little plaque on the side. For Daniel, defender of boundaries and builder of bridges. I stared at it for a long moment, speechless. Then I chuckled. Guess the moat really did turn into something beautiful. She nodded. Sometimes, the walls we build aren't just to keep others out. They're to remind ourselves what we're worth protecting. That night, as the lights reflected off the calm moat water, I sat with my dog, lemonade in hand, listening to nothing but cicadas and a distant splash from Ava's new fountain. No HOA drama, no fake rules, just peace, earned, fought for, and now, shared. And as I looked out across my backyard kingdom, quiet, glowing, safe, I whispered, "Long live the moat and the freedom it stands for."